With which countries are FCC licensed amateur stations prohibited from exchanging communications? Any countries whose administration has notified the ITU that it objects to such communications. You remember this is the International Telecommunications Union. This is that international United Nations body. And you can find a list of these countries if you go to the American Radio Relay League website, arrl.org. And if you hunt around in there, you'll find this information of countries that prohibit communications with their amateurs. There aren't very many of them, by the way. Oh. On which of the following occasions may an FCC licensed amateur station exchange messages with a U.S. military station? On Armed Forces Day, which I believe is the second Saturday in May, they have communications tests, and during that time the Armed Forces stations will come into the amateur bands and we're able to communicate with them. When is a transmission of codes or ciphers allowed to hide the meaning of a message transmitted by an amateur station? The only time you can do anything to obscure the meaning of your messages is when you're transmitting control commands to something, to a satellite, to a space station, or to a radio-controlled airplane or boat or something like that. Other than that, the transmissions have to be in plain language. What's the only time an amateur station is authorized to transmit music? The general rule is you can't transmit music, but when it's incidental to an authorized retransmission of a manned spacecraft communication, then it's permitted. But in general, even music in the background when you're operating is not allowed. When may amateur radio operators use their stations to notify other amateurs of the availability of equipment for sale or trade? When the equipment is normally used in an amateur station and such activity is not conducted on a regular basis. So if you have a piece of equipment you want to sell and you want to tell other hams about it on the radio, you can do that as long as you're not the owner of a ham radio equipment store, because that would be conducted on a regular basis. Also, you would not be able to let people know you were selling a car that way, because that's not equipment that's normally used in an amateur station. So when it's amateur equipment and you're not doing it on a regular basis. Okay, which of the following types of transmissions are prohibited? Transmissions that contain obscene or indecent words or language are prohibited. When is an amateur station authorized to automatically retransmit the radio signals of amateur stations, of other amateur stations? When the signals are from an auxiliary, repeater, or space station. And we're going to talk about auxiliaries and repeaters here in a little bit, and space, of course, the satellites. When may the control operator of an amateur station accept compensation? In general, amateurs are not allowed to be paid for communicating. But there's an exception made for teachers who are giving classroom instruction in amateur radio, and that's this right here, when communication is incidental to classroom instruction at an educational institution. Okay, so since I'm not an educational institution, I couldn't be paid for communicating with you over the radio if I was giving you just a lesson between the two of us on the radio. But if I was being paid as a classroom teacher to do that, then I could. Under which of the following circumstances are amateur stations authorized to transmit signals related to broadcasting, program production, or news gathering, assuming no other means is available? Correct answer for that is only where such communications directly relate to the immediate safety of human life or protection of property. Now this right here, the immediate safety of human life or protection of property is the FCC's definition of emergency. Okay? And there are things you can do under those conditions that you can't do at other times. What they're saying here is that if there's something happening that the news media need to let the public know for the immediate safety of human life and protection of property, that they're not able to get to their stations by any other means, hams can help them do that. Okay? But if their normal facilities are available, then you can. What's the meaning of the term broadcasting in the FCC rules for the amateur services? Broadcasting is transmissions intended for reception by the general public. And the general public really can't, mostly can't hear our transmissions anyway. They don't have equipment on the right frequencies. So we don't do any broadcasting in this sense. But this is the transmission of broadcast, or the definition of broadcasting. Which of the following types of communications are permitted in the amateur radio service? The correct answer is brief transmissions to make station adjustments. Now this seems like kind of a goofy answer. I'm going to go through all of this and take this exam and buy all this stuff so I can make brief transmissions to make station adjustments, right? It doesn't make much sense until you look at the other questions or the other answers, and I put them in here so you can see. The distractors are the retransmission of entertainment programming, commercial radio or TV, retransmission of entertaining programming on public radio or TV, or communications on a regular basis that could be carried out through another radio service. Okay, so these are the wrong answers, and when you see those, then it becomes fairly obvious that this is the correct one.